Jake had been driving for hours, the hum of his 18-wheeler blending with the rhythm of the dark highway. His eyes felt heavy, and the miles stretched endless in front of him. He needed a break, something to wake him up, something warm in his stomach. As he scanned the horizon, a faint glow of neon lights caught his eye. A diner. The sign above flickered in the distance. Mighty's Diner, open 24/7. Grateful for the chance to stop, Jake pulled off the highway and into the nearly empty parking lot. There was one other truck, but it looked like it had been parked there for a while, dust gathered on the windshield. The diner itself had an old-school charm, chrome accents, neon lights, and red vinyl booths that were illuminated by the dim glow inside. Jake stretched his legs, shook off his weariness, and pushed open the door. The small bell above the entrance jingled, and a woman behind the counter greeted him with a smile. She was in her mid-30s, her blonde hair tied back in a loose bun, wearing a classic white apron. Over her uniform, the name tag on her chest read Maddie. "Hey there, stranger, long night," she asked, as Jake slid into one of the booths. "Yeah, you could say that," Jake replied, settling into the cracked red vinyl seat. "Just needed to take a break and get something warm to eat." "Well, you came to the right place. We don't get too many folks this late, but I've got the best coffee on this side of the state line. You're hungry?" "Starving," Jake said with the grin. Maddie scribbled his order, eggs, bacon, and a slice of pie for dessert, and disappeared into the kitchen. The place was quiet, save for the low hum of an old jukebox in the corner, playing a song he hadn't heard in years. As he waited, Jake took in the diner's atmosphere. There was something oddly comforting about it. The flicker of the neon from the sign outside, the worn countertops, and the faint scent of fresh coffee brewing. When Maddie returned with his food, they struck up a conversation. Jake told her about his life on the road, the places he's seen, the long nights that stretch endless ahead. Maddie shared stories of the diner, how it had been in her family for years. Her warmth and the comfort of the diner made him feel more at home than he had in months. The food was simple but delicious. Each bite seemed to restore his energy, and the coffee, just as promised, was strong and piping hot. After finishing his meal and leaving a generous tip, Jake stood up to leave. "Thanks for the food, Maddie. Might just have to swing by in the morning for some breakfast," he said with a wink. "I'll be here," Maddie replied, her smile never fading. Jake gave a wave and he walked back to his truck, feeling more awake and alert. He decided to park at the nearby rest stop just a few miles up the road and get some sleep before continuing his haul. The night was cool, and as soon as his head hit the pillow in the cab, he drifted off into deep sleep. Next morning, the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. Jake yawned, stretched, and thought about Mighty's Diner. He could almost taste the breakfast he imagined waiting for him. Pancakes maybe, or another slice of that incredible pie. He pulled back onto the highway and made his way to the diner, but as he approached, something seemed off. The neon sign that had been glowing brightly the night before was dark, hanging crookedly from the rusted chains. The parking lot, once lit by the flickering lights, was cracked and overgrown with weeds. Jake frowned, confusion setting in as he parked his truck and stepped out. The bell above the door, the one that had jingled so cheerfully the night before, was missing. The door itself hung slightly ajar, creaking as he pushed it open. Inside the diner was a shell of what he remembered. Dust coated the counters and the red vinyl boots were torn and faded. The once vibrant color reduced to dull shadows. The jukebox in the corner, which had played softly the night before, was covered in grime, its lights long since burned out. Plates and utensils were still scattered across the counter, as if the place had been suddenly abandoned. "Maddie!" Jake called, his voice echoing through the empty diner. No answered. He walked to the counter where he had spoken to Maddie just hours earlier, but there were no sign of her. A chill ran down his spine as he glanced around, trying to make sense of it. It was as if the diner had been untouched for years. Jake's eyes landed on a dusty picture frame hanging behind the counter. In it was a black and white photo of a young woman smiling brightly, wearing the same apron Maddie had worn. Beneath the photo, a small brass plaque read, "In loving memory of Maddie, 1985. Jake's heart raced as he stared at the photo. That couldn't be right. He had spoken to Maddie. She had cooked him breakfast. They had laughed. They shared stories, but the plaque had told a different story. The diner had been abandoned for years. Jake stumbled back, his mind racing. He rushed out the door, back into the sunlight, the warmth of the morning doing the little to shake the chill that had settled into his bones. Had he imagined it all? The laughter, the smell of fresh coffee, the warmth of Maddie's smile, or had something else, something beyond reason, brought him to that diner last night? As Jake climbed back into his truck, he glanced one last time at the empty diner, its windows dark and lifeless. Shaking his head, he started the engine and pulled back onto the highway, leaving Maddie's diner behind. But the memory of that midnight stop would haunt him. It hunted him for the rest of his days.